This is the DTV Digest, the podcast that brings you news and reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema. And now, here's your host, Mike Parkin.
Hello, everyone, and Merry Christmas. This is the DTV Digest, the podcast which brings you reviews of films which didn't make it to the cinema and instead went straight to DVD, Blu-ray, or streaming media. I'm your host, Mike Parkin, and joining me this week are Richard Hawes.
Ho, 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 everybody.
Stephen Lockridge.
Merry Christmas.
And Will Bentley.
Season's greetings to you all.
Yay! And in this Christmas-themed episode, we're going to kick off with a horror film called The Night Before Christmas. Then we're going to go a bit of a London gangster with Silent Night. Our short shot is called Coming to Town, and we're going to round off with a bit of Gary Daniels' PM Entertainment in Riot in our DTV Throwback. So without any further ado, let's crack on. Our first review then is The Night Before Christmas. Santa and Mrs. Claus are back in town with another personal murderous agenda which may or may not involve the survivors of the previous season's slaughter, as seen in the film Once Upon a Time at Christmas. This time, FBI agent Natalie Parker has been tasked with finding these couple and discovering their true motive before it's too late. So, this is from director Paul Tanter, who we've discussed numerous times before, made one of the worst films ever with, what was it called now, Downing Street Siege, but has since redeemed himself with films like Kill Ratio and the Once Upon a Time at Christmas film that we reviewed last Christmas, which I thoroughly enjoyed. This one sort of follows on with the sort of main two characters, sort of Simon Phillips reprising his role as Santa, this sort of murderous Santa, who's got a different agenda this year. This is a bigger film than before. I think the production values are really, really good. We find out sort of along the way what the actual agenda is, what's actually going on, and that's sort of pretty satisfying. Not as satisfying as the setup from the previous film. And I just felt a little bit that when it sort of got to the end of the film, it was a bit of a mess. You know, I was very unsatisfied with the way this film actually sort of came together at the end. But I did enjoy a lot of what went before it. Steve, over to you for this.
Not too impressed with this, to be honest with you. I thought it was very over the top acting wise.
Have you not seen Simon Phillips before?
No.
That is his setting.
I didn't even realise this was like a sequel to You Just Mentioned It then.
All right.
I've not seen the original at all. Yeah, it was a bit of a mess. I mean, you've got one bit where they're going all out with the gore, and then the next minute they're not showing anything. It's very, very uneven, as the way I saw it. Not like I said, the ending was a bit of a hot mess as well. The twist kind of saw coming a mile off, but I don't know if that was investigated in the first one.
Yeah, it's a different MO, which I'll get into in a bit.
Yeah. Overall, I just found the acting was just way too corny for most of the cast, to be honest with you.
All right, gotcha. Rich, over to you, mate.
Yeah, I think I echo a couple of those points there. I think in terms of the jumping to the climax of the film, it is a bit silly. But then again, the climax of the first film was quite unsatisfying. I revisited that as well this week. I watched this because this came out a few weeks ago, prior to this recording, and I watched it then. And because it was actually 2 years ago that we covered the first film in 2018, and I couldn't really pick up the threads from the first film at that point, and it was actually stressed that this film is being essentially released, marketed as a standalone, which I was thinking, oh, maybe it's actually ignoring stuff or rebooting or whatever. But when I went back and rewatched the original film this week, there is a through line.
Yeah,
you know, it does continue. There is recasting involved, which confuses things, because I was trying to put the pieces together, and I was like, hang on a minute, is this a thing, or have they changed something, or is the character? Why is the character now? And it was like, no, it does fit. It's just all these principles, like the young victims, or the final girl and all that sort of stuff, was they've recast all those roles. We've got Simon Tantat and what's her name, Sailor DeGurd back as Mr. and Mrs. Claus, and you've also got the sheriff from the first film, played by Barry Kennedy. He's back, but again, almost didn't recognise him because he hadn't got his moustache in this one. Yeah. So when I first watched the film a few weeks ago, I didn't even register that it was that character from the first film. Whether that means that I found the first film forgettable or something, I don't know. But I actually quite enjoyed it, and this revisits many of the ideas. There's a Christmas theme, which is the motivation. There's a family, motivation. There's also the procedural aspect. So the first one, it was the small town sheriff's office in Woodridge, and in this one it's the FBI. So they've kind of upped it there, and it's more city based rather than in the sticks. Paul Tanter and Sam Phillips are both British, but this is an American production, or might have been shot in Canada, I'm not sure. But it's made to be an American movie, and I think, as you say, it's kind of seems to have had a budget increase from the first one. Some of the stuff, again, they recycle some of the ideas, like the whole idea of Mrs. Claus intentionally getting captured and stuff is kind of rejigged. The ending is essentially the same, but with a swap twist kind of thing, which seemed, when I rewatched the first one, I was like, what's going on with the ending of the first film? It's just like, it just sort of suddenly ends in that really awkward way. And they kind of did the same thing here, which I know leaves it open for more potential adventures, but still not quite sure. And in terms of the unevenness, I'll return to the sort of tone, because some of it's really straight, and then some of it's like really, like spoof sort of comedy. Like there's a massacre in a boardroom and stuff, and there's like a dun 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 da da sort of, people outside having water cooler moments while blood's spattering around and nobody really notices, and somebody walks in and goes, "Oh, I'll come back later." Which is funny, but it sort of felt like a slightly different movie. But yeah, I've got some more stuff to say, but I'll throw it back to you guys.
Yeah, I haven't got much more to say really, but I mean, I really did enjoy the first film. It has a really cool central gimmick as to how and why sort of people are getting killed, which is to do with the song "The 12 Days of Christmas," and it gets to I think it was about the fourth victim or so, when it finally clicked with me what was actually going on, and then I sort of backtrack going, oh my god, yes, I realized what was happening then, and I thought it was really clever, and they sort of kept with it and delivered it. This time it's
that was the thing. To me, the actual the list, shall we say? Yeah. It wasn't good enough. If you know what I mean, it was a stupid reason to go on this.
Some of it
massacre.
Well, I mean, the actual list itself, was that was just a very forced gimmick. I mean, some of their victims were sort of very righteous victims, so like the priest, for example.
The priest and that,
you think, I can see why they would sort of bear a grudge, and the CEO of the company and that sort of thing. That was all fine, but the need to actually sort of have a list, just sort of, and the fact that it baffled the FBI is like, which is quite bizarre. But I think not enough time was probably spent on the procedural side of it. So he didn't really sort of invest in the supposed protagonists of the film. So that side of it did feel a bit flat. But there's some nice set pieces. The whole thing with the convoy, I thought that was really well done.
Okay, I've got to go on the convoy. I've got to go on the convoy. Okay, the convoy assault. So Mrs. Claus is in the jail, And she just says, "Oh, sort of as a throwaway line, oh, I had razor blades for breakfast," and the guy's like, "Oh my god, she's had razor blades for breakfast. We got to ring him up, and we got to transport her. We got to get her to a hospital." No evidence whatsoever. She's not coughing up blood. There's literally no motivation for the urgency here, and so they do this massive convoy thing, which is quite a good sequence, but it's essential. I mean, it feels like I've seen that sequence before in other films, and I can't think what that was. I mean, I know it
feels like stuff done in trick, and things like that, and
maybe. And I think that to a certain extent, like The Dark Knight, there is. I mean, because Santa Claus and Mrs. Claus are basically the Joker and Harley Quinn.
Yeah.
But what I find quite funny about Simon Phillips's performance is he's basically playing the Joker dressed as Santa Claus doing Christian Bale's Batman voice. But so he's doing this. So that's right. So the convoy stops because there's a car in the road, and a guy dressed as Santa Claus with an axe is standing right in front of them, and they haven't been briefed to look out for a psycho Santa, and they go, there's a pedestrian in the road. That's it. There doesn't seem to be anything unusual about this. He starts hacking away at a tree. It's like, what's going on here? And they just wait, and then he manages to take out everybody in the entire convoy. They don't show it all, but he apparently has managed to take out everybody. Doesn't have any automatic weapons or anything. He's just walking around with an axe.
Yeah, but it's well filmed.
It is well filmed. It is.
It's well filmed, yeah, but it is ridiculous. I mean, not only that, you've got the rookie, who, first week out of he's might as well put a red shirt on him and stick him in Star Trek.
Well, they do. They really build him up, don't they, for about 10 minutes or several minutes.
He's a goner. Yeah, that's what I mean. It goes from like the serious slasher to the ridiculous and in the same bloody scene at times, and it just, I don't know. Maybe if I'd seen the first one, it might have gelled a bit more. I don't know.
Like I say, it was originally a couple of years since I'd seen the original, and I didn't put the pieces together. And even when I watched them back to back, like one day, one the next day, I was still not really 100% sure because I don't know. It just did. Some of it was just not as memorable, and other things were like because of the casting changes, just really confused me.
I do recommend.
I like the way they. I do. So do I. Yeah, it's I think they've marketed it as a standalone because the first one didn't have a DVD release like this one, so it's not. It's kind of harder to find. So they're kind of like trying to sit this on its own, but it is very much a sequel because it picks up. What's his name? So he's Santa's name is Nick Conway, and in the first film it establishes that he was a British Marine who went to America and was working with the forces there, and met a girl, blah blah blah, and he was in a mental asylum and faked his own death and all that sort of stuff. So that's where this film picks up. It flashes back, shows you a bit of that time when he was in the asylum and the escape. And obviously the whole story sort of hinges on the asylum, the time in the asylum, which I believe is in Woodridge as well, because it turns out like everybody's related, everything's connected. It's like, whoa, everything entirely is, no matter what facet of the story you look at, there's a link, which is almost too convenient. But I guess that's small town life for you. I don't know, but I had a lot of fun with this. And Paul Tanter, he's got a signature kind of look and style to his films. I can't explain what it is, but you can kind of tell his movie style. I mean, not just the presence of Simon Phillips, who is a long-time collaborator, and they've done loads of projects together, including the most recent one was called Stealing Chaplin, which is a different kind of film for them. I think still crime, but different thing. But this is, like camp, pantomime sort of horror, procedural kind of thing. I enjoyed it. I also think the makeup and costume department, deserve a shout out because Simon Phillips looks really good, as Mrs. Claus and her makeup and everything. That all looks really great. There's a lot to recommend this. I think more good than bad, definitely.
Okay, and on that note, guys, scores on the doors. I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10.
Yeah.
I'm going to go.
Go on, Rich.
I'm going to go 7. High 7 from me.
7. And Steve, did I hear a
I'm
4
gonna go
from you?
6.
A 6.
So
Awesome.
I'll 6.
I thought
It is
you were
watchable.
46, right? I got it. Okay, 2 6s and a 7 for the Nights Before Christmas. Our next review is Silent Night. After serving 6 years in prison, ex-hitman Mark just wants to go legit and reconnect with his ex-wife and young daughter. However, a turf war is brewing up with his old firm, and he finds himself sucked back in to do one last job. Okay, so this is very much sort of the kitchen sink end of sort of the London gangster kind of movie. The opening sort of credit sequences have this sort of montage of like sort of council estates and sort of council sort of tower blocks with, you know, these really sort of meager attempts at putting up sort of Christmas decorations, which kind of only just sort of highlight just how depressing these sort of places actually look. It's a real mood setter, basically. I'm going to leave it there for the time being and go over to Rich.
The first thing that really strikes you in that opening is the cinematography. It's the way the film is shot, the way it looks, the lighting and everything is very impressive, and that really carries through the whole movie. I think one of the probably the great strength of the film is cinematographer Malcolm Hadley's work on the film. Although I think overall there's a great deal to recommend, including the performances and the script and the characters are all very, you know, interesting and compelling. It's a bit routine, some of it. You know, you've seen quite a bit of it before. There's some story developments which again are perhaps over familiar, but you may not be expecting them to happen in this kind of movie. Without wanting to give too much away, Bradley, what's his name? Bradley
Taylor.
Yeah, Bradley Taylor is really good in the lead. He reminds me of as an American actor. I think it's I can't remember the name of the guy, but there's an American actor who he looks a lot like, and he's just got this dark charisma about him. He's sort of very much an everyman type. You know, you can kind of relate to him as. So this is a movie about a hitman, but he's very much not a Dolph Lundgren type hitman. You know, this is kind of a you know, very relatable, you know, bloke you would meet down the pub kind of guy, and his mate, who is what's his? Oh, remind me what his mate's name is. Alan, played by Corey Cranston. If you look up this Carrie Cranston, if you look him up on IMDb, you would not recognize him from the way he looks in the movie. Oh, he's so transformed, and that, you know, it's a great character. But who you would recognize is Frank Harper, who's like a gangster movie staple. He's not in it as much as the cover art, the new cover art for the DVD and digital release would have you expect. It makes it look like Frank's the main character, but he's not. He's a key player, but he's very much sort of in the back of the story. I'll throw it back over to you guys.
Steve?
I really enjoyed this, actually. It's like you're saying, it's definitely on the lower end of the class scale, shall we say. But I thought, like I say, Bradley Taylor, I thought he was really good in it. Really good. And Carrie Cranston as well. Very, very grimy, very gritty, but you know, he's just one of them guys who just wants to go straight. Obviously, gets dragged back in. Now, the only thing I'd say is the two kind of twists. I don't know about you guys, but I saw them coming a mile off.
Yeah.
Really?
One of them in particular, definitely, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I was listening to Kermode yesterday, the podcast, and he more or less just spoiled it with his description of the film. I'm like, no, that's too much. But yeah, I mean, it's one of them. We've seen it before. It's not going to change the world or anything like that, but it's just enjoyable. And I thought, like Bradley said, he was so good in it. His face is just so hound dogged and just so. Oh, what's the word I'm looking for? Conflicted with what he's doing, you know. He really does want to go straight, and he's just been dragged back into it. He's down on his luck, really, living in his van, getting what work he can, and he obviously loves his daughter, and he's trying to forge that connection with her, even kind of talking around his ex as well, you know.
Yeah.
Just try to be in their lives, and then all gets dragged away.
I thought it was quite clever because you start to like him and relate to him, and his mate as well. But then they put in this scene where an innocent bystander is just becomes a victim as a consequence to being in the wrong place at the wrong time, and that's that was a good scene. It's a horrible scene, but it's kind of. It's good because it reminds you that these are bad guys doing very bad things, and that you're not supposed to be sympathising with them too much. So I thought that was quite a bold development. They could have easily not done that at all, but I think that scene was quite that sort of changed the way that you were looking at the characters from that point onward, which I thought was quite good.
Because it happens so very reflexively, doesn't it? You know, she's there at the wrong point in time. You know, there's no sort of like sort of grilling his conscience or anything. It's just like, no, it's done. You know, before we even really thought about it. You know, which is really interesting. I didn't like this as much as you guys. I think part of it is its over familiarity. Plot wise, and just the sheer griminess of it just depressed me. Really, it's like, oh god, that opening bit. I can certainly admire it for what it does, and the ending I thought was very good. And especially what he does for his daughter, I thought was really good. You know, I really enjoyed sort of seeing that little bit. But overall, I was like, oh god, I'm gonna slit my wrists in a minute. You know, Jesus. No. So yeah.
It kind of reminded me of Kill List. To be fair. The two guys working together and.
Yeah.
Well, like you say, it is a theme that's been done to death. But yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't even in terms of the sort of the bleak nature of it. I think that didn't really rub off on me. I mean, it reminded me a little bit of Vengeance that we watched a few weeks ago. That was very much a council estate kind of thing going on. But this is much more polished. This is really handsome looking film.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean there are definitely some good scenes. That that whole the board meeting in the Chinese restaurant with that woman, the poor manager having to come over and ask her to stop smoking, and she just smokes even harder basically. It's just really bizarre. But yeah, obviously not someone you mess with at all. So yeah, I don't know. It didn't work. It didn't. Well, it's not that so much it didn't work for me. It just didn't appeal to me. You know, I think as a film it's fine, but as entertainment, it's not up my street personally. So scores on the doors for Silent Night, guys. I'm going to go with a 6 on this.
Definitely 7. 5-7.
7 from Steve and Rich.
I'm going to go an 8 on this one. As I was very impressed, and say it's mainly for I love a film that they've really gone to town. Really paid good attention to the cinematography and stuff. And I think that shows a real commitment to the project, and I think everyone has done really great work on this, and deserves an 8 as far as I'm concerned.
Okay, a real smattering across the board for this one. So a 6, a 7, and an 8 for Silent Night. Our short shot this week is Coming to Town. Jo Beth is an 11-year-old girl being bullied at school. She asks Santa for revenge, and on Christmas Eve, her wish is granted, as a deranged Santa with an automatic weapon pays her foes a visit. This is a lot of fun. Really felt for the little girl writing her letter. You know, her mum's in hospital. She's got this fucking arsehole called Alex who's bullying her at school. And why not? Why would Santa not sort of grant her wish and come herring to town in a battered old van with a bunch of elves to kick some ass?
Deviant elves.
Deviant elves, even.
Deviant elves.
Who like to talk about their how they lost their virginity and things like this. It's
With chicken.
with a chicken.
God.
It's This is kind of like the film Bad Santa, I guess. You know, sort of the Bad Santa version of sort of Santa Claus. But this guy, you know, grimy, messy sort of thing, turns up with an AK. Not an AK. He says, "Fuck." Was it "fuck the commies"? Thing pulls out.
Yeah, commies.
Yeah.
M16, wasn't it?
M16. That was it. Yeah. Quite amusing. So this is a lot of fun. Very light-hearted. Rich, you said this is one you've seen before, that you sort of decided to sort of pull out of the bag for this particular Christmas episode. How did it stand up on this viewing?
Yeah, it still does. This is from 2006. I probably saw it a while after that, but it was definitely a long time ago. And it's always stuck with me. And when I was trying to think of, we'll do a Christmas episode, need a Christmas short, and I haven't really found any released this year or in recent years that sort of really jumped out at me. So I thought, well, why not go for a classic, as it were? I mean, it's amazing that this is nearly 15 years old. It's a Spanish film, mainly. It was Spanish-American co-production. The writer-director is Spanish. It's 17 minutes. It's got a really great story, beginning, middle, end. You know, the performances are excellent. There's some great developments.
Yep.
It's very well made. It's very funny. Great characters. Yeah, I think you could do much worse than spend 17 minutes on this. Steve,
what do you make of Coming to Town?
Yeah, I loved it. It was just batshit. Absolutely batshit insane. It starts off, it's sort of nice and sweet and lovely, this little girl going for all of this, and even the headmaster of the school's an absolute bastard with her.
Oh, yeah.
Just doesn't give a shit about being bullied, and then all of a sudden, bang, it just switches, and then you've got this mad little elf with even the one in the back of the car with a gas mask on.
Yeah.
And you're like, what? Something's not right here at all. And then when they break into the other house, though, and Santa Claus is actually there, and it's his brother, his grimy little brother. And he's like, I'm going to kill him. He's like, no. I'm going to tell Mum. And that's it. I was in tears. I was laughing my ass off. It was brilliant.
Yeah, it's very good indeed. Yeah, so some nods to things like Gremlins in there as well. The bit with the parents of Alex really amused me as well. Like as soon as the dad sees the dad comes out with a bloody baseball bat, and as soon as he sees the elf, he hands the baseball bat to his wife and just runs away. So little things like that. It's a very clever little short. Just thoroughly enjoyable. We'll put the link into the footnotes as we usually do with the shorts. So this is definitely worth checking out. Did you
recognise the bully?
No.
He was little Michael Myers in Rob Zombie's Halloween.
Well, I haven't seen Rob Zombie's abomination of the Halloween movies.
How can you call it an abomination if you haven't seen it?
This is anything that Rob Zombie touches is a fucking abomination, mate.
No, what are you talking about? Rob Zombie's done some really good stuff.
Like what?
Well, Devil's Rejects, House of a Thousand Corpses.
Okay, I'll give you. What's the one that came after Devil's Rejects?
3 from Hell.
Yeah,
3 from Hell, I haven't
give
seen.
3 from Hell. That was actually quite good. But things
Not
like
seen
Lords
that
of
one yet.
Salem was rubbish. 31 was abysmal.
Yeah, I actually haven't seen his recent stuff. I'll be honest.
right.
I've only seen the earlier films. Halloween, I didn't actually like that much, but because it's got that weird. It's partially like a prequel, then a remake in the so that didn't really work for me. Halloween 2 is crazy. I mean, you got to see that just because it's just like mad about what he did with it. But and it's Malcolm McDowell and stuff. But anyway, off track. But that was
quite off track. But anyway, yes, Coming to Town is definitely worth seeing. The link will be in the footnotes. Our DTV throwback this week is Riot. On Christmas Eve, a riot breaks out following a police shooting in downtown Los Angeles. In the midst of the chaos, the British ambassador's daughter is kidnapped and a ransom demanded. Major Shane Alcott, formerly of the SAS, is a friend of the family and is brought in to deliver the ransom into the heart of the riot zone itself. Okay, so this is pure PM entertainment. They really do put the entertainment part into their films. Gary Daniels doing a really good job in this one, and joined by none other than Sugar Ray Leonard as his mate and chopper pilot. So, Will, what did you make of Riot?
Yeah, I actually enjoyed it, to be honest. It really ticks all the boxes for like a kind of 80s action hero movie, and quite timely as well with the content and topic. What year was this actually made in?
1996.
It's hilarious because it's like it. Yeah, I mean, all of the clothing you're looking at it thinking, yep, this is a 90s movie through and through. And I think there's either a nod to or several quite high profile films were inspired by the action sequences in this. I don't know. There was just things in it that made me think of a couple of things like Demolition Man and stuff.
Well, I think PM Entertainment's work was quite influential in general to action filmmakers coming up, and now I think you could say you can see a through line, I think, from a lot of what was happening then to some of the stuff you see in even today's blockbusters, definitely.
Yeah, and it was good. It was slick. It was a slick movie.
I'll come back to you shortly, Will. So, Rich, on to you with the Riot.
It was never one of my favourites. I think, growing up watching some of the Gary Daniels movies, always great because Gary Daniels was, for contemporary audiences, was the Scott Adkins of his day. He was the first British martial arts action star. Didn't make films in Britain because we weren't there yet. We've only just got there with Scott Adkins.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, Gary Daniels only started making films in the UK a few years ago, not headlining, but in supporting roles like Ross Boyack's Vengeance or I Am Vengeance, and Scott Adkins with Jesse Johnson and Accident Man and all that sort of stuff. So, but growing up seeing a British action star was great. Who doesn't put on an accent, unlike Scott Adkins had to do for quite a long time, or wanted to do. I'm not quite sure. Gary Daniels has basically always been Gary Daniels, from Chiswick. So there's a certain he's our Jean-Claude Van Damme from that period, basically. So he's always, and his moves are great. You go back and watch this. He's definitely. He's a they go out of their way to show how in shape he is at the beginning of the movie with a workout scene and stuff. And then
it's whole multi-gym in his apartment.
Yeah.
And he's doing he gets a lot, several fight scenes which are basically all on him. It's quite an unusual thing because there's not loads of other people doing martial arts in the movie. It's kind of him beating up. There's a couple of fight scenes, but you know what I'm saying, sort of it's weighted in his favor, a lot of the action scenes, I think. But apart from the fact that some of the action is cut way too quickly, it's like he'll throw a kick and before it's just it's like just landing, and then they cut to the next bit and it's just like, well, hang on a minute, show the impact a little bit more. It's like, just hold it. They're a bit too I don't know, what do you call it? Impatient with the action kind of thing.
Yeah.
But apart from there's a staircase bit, which is really, a stairwell fight, which is really good. But it's really towards I should mention the bar brawl at the beginning, which is really the major scene with Gary and Sugar Ray Leonard. That's kind of his big scene where he's like boxing, fighting him off. That's a really good scene. And like so many action scenes in PM movies, it goes on a lot longer than you think it might. It's like you think, okay, hang on a minute, this is where it would normally end. Oh no, it's going to keep going. And at one point, it goes from one action scene straight into another one. it's like they just don't stop. So I'll throw it back to you guys before I add any more comments.
Just a couple of things about that bar scene at the beginning. It actually reminded me of Black Dynamite in one bit, because in Black Dynamite it's a bit where he goes to this pool hall and everyone starts giving him shit. So he sort of turns around and walks to the door, and everyone's going, yeah, you better run, sort of thing. And he just flips the sign over to say it's closed. And everyone shuts up. And it's kind of like that, where they put the pool table in front of the door so no one can get out while they beat the shit out of everyone. But there's a bit where they sort of go, right, you finished playing now, we can go. And then the whole thing just carries on, as the fight just carries on from that point. But the bit I thought was quite funny was that, by this point, the ambassador's daughter's already been kidnapped, and somebody sent like a couple of MPs to go find Gary Daniels' character, and they just have to be passing as all these guys get thrown through the window, and they go, this must be the place.
That's one of the great cliches, isn't it?
It's brilliant. So yeah, now in the credits at the end, the very first name that you see is a guy called Spyro Rosatos, who's the stunt coordinator for this. And if you have a look on his IMDb page, he has had a hand in just about every single Marvel, Fast and Furious movie, anything you can think of that's got a decent action scene. He's either been a stunt guy or he's been second unit director, and you can see where his influences have come from. Basically, the groundwork done and things like PM Entertainment.
But he also directed he did films like Class of 1999 2, and I think he directed Fast Getaway 2 as well, or it might be Fast Getaway 1, I can't remember. But he's done loads. He's done stuff with Bollywood and everything. He's been all over the place. He's like the go-to guy for vehicular action, basically.
Absolutely. Yeah, and there's stuff in this one, like there's this whole scene with a second group of motorcyclists who all have matching motorcycles and appear, their intros to sort of drive through these sort of plate glass windows from this office block. And I'm thinking, well, how did they get their motorbikes into the office block in the first place? And how come Gary Daniels didn't hear them revving their engines as they sort of drive? Anyway, but that's beside the point. The whole action scene is really well done. Is that the one that's outside with the swinging on the buntings? Yeah,
stuff and everything.
Bunting. Yeah, so he does this Tarzan swing with the bunting, which is really cool, kicking people off the bike, and then he sort of like manages to fling the bunting around somebody's neck and hangs them as they sort of drive past. It's
also
cool.
But he also takes out two riders at the same time with a plank.
That was genius.
This is so well done. We've covered like PM Entertainment stuff before, the Thomas C. Howell one, which I forgot the name of now.
Sweeper.
Yeah. And again, their action scenes are pretty much outrageous. The stunt work is has to be seen to be believed.
Well, this one's got two motorbike sequences. There's one in a junkyard with the bikes are just driving on top of the cars and stuff, and it ends with this massive forklift, chasing after Gary Daniels with a car, and then dropping the car and it explodes.
So that was exactly. Exactly what does it take for a battered old car in a junkyard? The mere act of throwing it on top of another battered old car to make them explode so spectacularly. That is the signature PM Entertainment thing, isn't it? Sort of car has a little prang and all of a sudden explodes, incredibly violently.
The funny thing with that is that ends with a Gary Daniels diving away from an explosion.
Yeah.
But then the next motorbike sequence also ends with him diving away from a man on fire, riding a motorbike and crashing it. Explosion. It's like you don't see. I've said it before in previous episodes. You don't see much man on fire stuff these days.
They've got about 3 different people. 3 different stunt guys having to sort of flail around, and as you say, one of them driving a motorbike.
Yeah, while on fire. That's pretty amazing stuff.
Pretty amazing. Sort of plot-wise, I think this is actually pretty good, structurally at least, because at the halfway point in the film, we get this sort of tragic moment, and then we get this reveal that the bad guys aren't the real bad guys. There's actually other bad guys behind them who've got sort of this personal vendetta against sort of Gary Daniels' character, which just sort of because up to a point I'm thinking, okay, this guy, the sort of the kidnappers thinking, yeah, he's a pretty decent bad guy, but he's kind of a cartoonish bad guy, and then all of a sudden
Simon Phoenix.
Yes, exactly. He's doing the Simon Phoenix sort of Wesley Snipes sort of impression. But then that's sort of stripped away, and then suddenly you get these sort of, these more serious sort of guys in black taking over who,
It depends how seriously you take the accent.
The accent, yeah, of course. Yeah.
Which wasn't that. The accents weren't that convincing.
No. But the berets were. The berets sold. The beret and the mustache that definitely sold it for me.
Now, perhaps you can clear this up for me. Are the guys riding the motorcycles part of the terrorist group, or are they a separate gang?
That's a good question.
I think they were friends of the roller hockey team that he took.
But that's what I mean. The film kind of is 2 things, isn't it? It starts out one way, and it sort of goes it tries to be a bit Escape from New York, and adds in these sort of quirky, like you say, ice hockey or street hockey gang bad guys. And then in the second half of the film, it kind of changes into a much more generic sort of typical, I've got, having a vendetta against a guy who you've got a past with, kind of coincidence. Oh, isn't it a coincidence? I've just run into this guy who I've had previous dealings with.
No, but it wasn't a coincidence at all.
It was all a bit like
it was all by design.
Clear and Present Danger, was it?
Oh yeah. The other Patriot Games.
Patriot Games, yeah. It was a bit Patriot Games. A bit. Do you remember the Arnold Schwarzenegger Running Man?
Yes.
A bit like that too.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely.
It was a patchwork of brilliantly overdone, like 90s action movies. Because obviously the biker guys in Matching Bikes, I don't think they were affiliated with anybody.
I just threw them in.
They were in a different film.
Yeah. Now, funny enough, we mentioned The Sweeper earlier. That was actually directed by the same guy as this Joseph
Mahai.
Even, yeah. He's got an amazing IMDb page. His list of films.
Well, he's the M in PM.
Right. We need. I mean, I'm pretty sure we've covered some of these before. Zero Tolerance. Have we done that one?
We haven't. No, that's the Robert Patrick one.
That's the Robert Patrick one.
With Mick Fleetwood from Fleetwood Mac.
Yeah, I remember. Who was it? Tom, or was it yourself who did the sort of the rundown of the PM Entertainment stuff with all the trailers?
Tom was the lead on that one. Yeah.
Tom.
Yeah.
Our friend Tom Jolliffe. And I remember watching the trailers and I thought, oh my God, some of these we really need to see, because the stunt work is just so good. You do not get stunt work like this anymore.
Well, to sort of give not just Spiro Rosatos and the career that he's gone on to, but also Chad Stahelski was a stuntman on this movie. So that kind of again shows the progression of how did we get from movies like this to John Wick and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah, absolutely. There's one other actor we haven't mentioned in this is Charles Napier, who plays this FBI agent. Now he of course was the sort of the civil servant stuffed shirt in Rambo First Blood Part 2, who aborts the mission, and he kind of plays a similar role here, or at least you think he does, and then he sort of does something a bit more sort of slightly sympathetic. But he's good at that sort of role, sort of like the officious sort of like kind of bad guy, but not.
I was going to ask who that was actually, because it was kind of an archetypal role in that. As soon as you saw him, you're like, oh yeah.
I mean, Charles Napier's, classic character actor. Appeared in. I don't know if is he still around or has he passed away? I'm not sure. I mean, I haven't seen him in anything for a long time, but he was very much a staple of 80s and 90s in particular.
Died October 2011.
Right. Yeah. Yeah, but also Patrick Kilpatrick, who plays Brian O'Flaherty, he was wasn't he the Sandman in Death Warrant and stuff like that? That's what he's kind of.
I know the name was familiar. I haven't really couldn't remember. But
he's a very well known bad guy. Turns up in all sorts of stuff. And the other thing I wanted to ask you about was the Ernest news broadcasts.
Oh yeah.
What did you think about that sort of? Because it was adding a whole different kind of element. It was a step beyond exposition. I mean, it was there for exposition, but it went beyond that, and they were sort of really dwelling on it and sort of trying to give a real, meaning and sort of make a feel good sort of ending to the film and stuff, which I thought was quite unusual.
Yeah, the whole riot thing, and the whole reason for the riots. I mean, it's so prescient. Obviously that was they did it off the back of the
LA riots.
Yeah, Rodney King. But the things we've had, that America's had to endure sort of this year. It's I mean, it was very prescient indeed. Sort of that whole element. And I thought it was actually pretty good. That sort of commentary, and it was better than what we usually get. That sort of exposition by, some newscaster. I didn't like some of it. I didn't like the fact that they were sort of commenting on things like, yes, a helicopter left to pick up the people. Thinking the FBI wouldn't tell you that. You wouldn't get that level of detail this early into the into what's happened. That's just sort of bullshit.
The other thing I'm not sure about with this TV news reporter is because he is the same actor with the same first name, playing basically the same role as in another Gary Daniels film from a year before, Rage.
Oh yeah.
So in this one he's called Harry Johansson, but in Rage he's just credited as Harry. So I'm really intrigued to watch Rage to realise if he's actually meant to be, if it's implied to be that he's the same character, because I know Gary Daniels isn't obviously supposed to be the same character. It's not a sequel in that sense, but is there some sort of cinematic universe kind of thing going on with this guy? I don't know.
PM Entertainment sort of cinematic universe. That'd be really interesting.
That'd be ace.
So it's his estranged brother who's also ended up in the United States.
Well, that would actually sort of be brilliant if it was, if there was some conscious sort of decision that we're going to create a sort of a PM Entertainment cinematic universe where every parked car can explode at a second, with a single gunshot, and crazy stunts happen in just about every other street. That would be amazing. It'd be like that film coming out called Free Guy with
Ryan Reynolds.
Ryan Reynolds, yeah, that sort of thing. But yeah, that'd be really, really funny if it did that. I hope everyone has got the gist that we really enjoyed this film. It is pure entertainment. The problem is with pure entertainment stuff is it is a bit difficult to find on disc. There are a number of them on Amazon Prime, like The Sweeper, I believe that was one we found on Amazon Prime. This one is actually been made available on YouTube, and we will put the link into the footnotes. It's been made available on YouTube by the film's writer,
Joseph John Barmettler.
Yeah, on his sort of personal account. So we'll put a link there, and hopefully you guys will check it out. It is a Christmas film. It is set on Christmas Eve, as we mentioned, so it fits in with our episode tonight. But thank you everyone for listening. It's been a bit of a weird year for everyone involved, I think, but hopefully things are moving on. So I'd just like to thank Richard, Steve and Will for joining me this evening for our Christmas episode.
No problem.
No problem. Been a pleasure.
Happy to do it.
Awesome. And everyone, Merry Christmas everyone, and tune in next time.
Thank you you for listening to the DTV Digest. Let us know your thoughts in the comments and tune in again next time.